Reading with your kids.
Hola, niho, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni moni wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jed Lee, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful and historic neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and so wicked happy that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show, and please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, wherever you find your podcasts. We want to invite all the authors and aspiring authors who are listening to the podcast to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Please be sure to click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to discover how we can help you celebrate your book with the entire world. Now, you know, if you are an author, especially an independent or self-published author, you probably had no idea that when you were writing your book and getting it published, you had no idea that once that book was published, that you became the CEO of a small business, your book business. Yeah, it is. It's a business now. And you had no idea that there are literally thousands of books published every single... You thought I was going to say year. No. There are thousands of books published every single month. It is so hard for a book to stand out in that crowd, especially an independent or sub-published book. But we would love to help you do that. If you visit readingwithyourkids.com and click on that Authors Click Here button, you will discover how you can be a guest here on the podcast. Being a guest gives you the chance to tell the world all about your book. It's fun, it's easy, and it doesn't cost you a thing. You can also learn about our Certified Great Read program. This is a program that has helped so many authors. You can also discover our monthly promotion program. We're really excited. We've helped so many authors to date, and we would love to help you. Please go to readingwithyourkids.com, click on that Authors Click Here button at the top of the page, and discover how we can help you celebrate your book with the world. Before we invite our guests into the studio, we want to invite you to connect with us on social media. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at readingwithyourkids on Instagram and TikTok, and at Jedley Magic on Twitter. We would also love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. We have an fantastic online magazine. It is called Reading with Your Kids. You're going to find some fantastic writing in the magazine, great author profiles, cooking with your kids, recipes, STEM activities you can do with your kids, find out what games you can play with your kids. So much there on the Reading with Your Kids online magazine, and it is free, and it is available at our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Florida. Our guest is here today to celebrate his brand new children's book. It's called Kiki and Slugger's Magic Spring Adventure. Please welcome to the show, Robert Provan. Hey, Robert, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Robert and I were just chatting about Florida and Boston and the temperatures and friends, and I have a feeling this is going to be a wonderful, wonderful conversation about a wonderful book. Tell us, who's Kiki?
Well, Kiki is a key deer, which is a real animal that lives only in the Florida Keys. They're like a white-tailed deer up in New England that you're familiar with, only these are about 18 inches tall. They're protected, and they're very real down in the Big Pine Key area.
18 inches tall, so that's being vertically challenged. I kind of love that. It sounds like, you know, something you can put in your pocket and bring home.
Well, part of the problem with them is that they're not actually afraid of people. They'll literally, if you get out of the car, they'll literally walk up to you, but that doesn't bode well for them in traffic and things like that. So
Right.
There's a lot of signs, you know, and they're protected. So, but they're by nature very shy creatures. And I picked that as one of the characters for the book because I've seen a lot of them, been around them.
Uh-huh. And
first-hand experience kind of thing.
And who is your buddy Slugger?
Well, Slugger actually is a friend of mine. He is some old friend's black lab, and he's a big old goofy dog. He's, like a lot of black labs are a puppy till they're 5 or something. He's just an amazing dog, though. He's fun. And he's the only dog I know when we watch the Seminoles play football. This dog will literally, if you're familiar with a chop, or tomahawk chop when there's a tie, this dog literally sits here and tries to do it. He gets on his back legs and comes down when everybody in the room's. Yeah, it's like, does he really know he's doing it? Well, he must be. He's not accidental, right? So to me, it was an interesting pairing for a small, shy animal like that, by nature, timid but still curious, with a big, lumbering, like 90-pound black lab, kind of the bull of a china shop, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. My daughter has a black lab that's mixed with something that's absolutely not a pit bull. No way you can tell me it's a pit bull, but it's a beautiful dog, and they have such a really playful personality. I'm just amazed. This is, he's as you said, the biggest, goofiest dog I've ever known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
cool.
but what a fun character, though, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And what a great pairing. Two very different kind of animals with very different personalities.
Yeah, that is, to be honest, I felt kind of the challenge and the fun part of writing it. Because what I did was, my books in the Keys, that are set in the Keys, I usually write them because of firsthand experience, and there's a spot I like to go where I know there's a heavy density of population of the key deer. So I just went there and just walked through the woods, and I'm hanging out there, and I'm literally watching the deer go by me. And off in the distance, I could hear a dog barking. So, I mean, it was literally legitimately a nearby neighbor dog. I don't know what it was barking at, but I watched the deer, and they'd turn their head, and they'd kind of almost seemed like they were discussing it, off in front of me. And I'm like, all right, well, that could work. So I don't know. I thought it was fun,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm curious now. You are a Navy veteran. So first off, thanks for your service. After serving our country in such a different way, what led you to writing a children's book?
My daughter, who was 4 at the time, and like all 4-year-olds, I suppose, is full of questions. And we lived in Georgia because I've worked 40 some odd years in construction. And I happened to be working in Atlanta on a big project there. Anyway, we live near a lake, and she's 4. We're sitting on the steps of the house looking out. She goes, "Daddy, where do the clouds come from?" And I said, "Well, honey, the clouds come from the lake." She's like, "No, they don't even touch the lake." And I said, "Well, yes, they do." And but I mean, no matter what, if I answered one question, it turned into a matrix of 20 others. Finally, I'm like, I'm going to write this down. Because then the next door neighbors, actually my daughter's best friend, who's also 4, starts telling her friend about how I said clouds are come the lake. Now I got 2 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds grilling me, little girls. And I'm like, okay, you guys. And her dad's laughing at me. All 4 parents are all like, all right, I'm going to write this down. Then I'm going to show you guys. And I just kind of went from there. Again, it was observations of nature based on being in it. I'm an outdoor kind of guy, right? Like you mentioned, I was from Vermont and spent my youth in the woods and streams and mountains up there. So come to Florida, kind of same gig. But anyway, that was, in a nutshell, what it was, answering a 4-year-old's questions.
Wow. That's, yeah, I can relate to that. My daughter's 27 right now, but I absolutely had those moments where one question led to another, which led to 50 or 60 other questions. And it's a really wonderful time. And parents that take the time to answer those questions and have those conversations, I think it's so important because I think it does so much. It brings us so much closer together. And one of the reasons I started the Reading with Your Kids podcast is because a lot of those conversations, those questions come from books and the stories that we're reading and sharing with our kids.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's kind of a barometer for how their little minds are working too, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you answer one question and they just instantly come up with 5, that can't be right. I don't see the cloud in the water. Okay. That's an interesting thing. And the books that I've written, I have 4 of them, children's books. That's the whole thing. Is I'm just I want families to read together. Put down the electronics, turn off the TV, and ultimately it would be like a kind of a call to action to help out with the environment. Not to be preachy or my stories are fun with fun characters with a very positive look at it, because although there's a lot of work and things we can do better as humans on the planet, there's every reason for hope. There's a lot of people who do care a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping, above all else, that some children reading the book maybe will think about that and want to go out in the woods with their parents and pick up litter or whatever it might be. Make some positive contribution.
Yeah. You mentioned growing up in Vermont and growing up in the mountains of Vermont. What a beautiful state that is. I've spent so much time up in Vermont, performing in different festivals, events, and schools, and it really is a special place. And so I totally understand how you could have developed a real love of nature growing up in Vermont. How do you think parents, other than moving to Vermont or moving to the Florida Keys, how do you think we can best help our kids develop that love of nature and the curiosity that kind of grows into a love for nature?
I think by encouraging them to ask the kind of questions we're talking about, and by getting out of the house with them and taking them outside. Like for me, for example, my mother, lifelong nature lover. She was a Brit from World War II. She moved back to Vermont after the end of the war with my dad. There was a soldier there, obviously. Anyway, they came back. So like little things like bird feeders. She had bird feeders all over the backyard, Vermont, lots of trees, got all that. And she had a bird book, an Audubon bird book there right by a window where you could look right out. And it was an interesting thing. I'd say, what kind of bird is that? She'd be like, well, here's the book. Let's figure it out. And that kind of thing. And then another item, in my opinion, would be the fact that, like, for very often, and for Sunday evenings, we'd be watching, after football was over, we'd be watching Mutual Omaha Wild Kingdom, or if there was a Jacques Cousteau special, we'd watch that until they were ready to pull the hair out. So I want to watch it over and over again. But it's really getting out there and encouraging their inquisitive minds.
Yeah. That's a great reminder that kids model after us, and that if we want our kids to develop a love of nature, one of the best ways to do that is to show them that we are really curious and spend a lot of time out in nature and learning about it.
Yeah, there's a big difference between sharing an image on an iPhone with your child as opposed to take them to the stream.
Yeah.
And let's find some salamanders. And look, there's a painted turtle over here. Things like that. And that's kind of what we did. And interestingly, when I went back to England, I was fortunate enough to go visit my grandparents while they were still with us. And I got to my grandparents' house, and there was the bird. I literally go in the kitchen, and there's the window, big window, country, a nice little cottage out in the English countryside, and there's a bird book.
Uh-huh. And
I just went, get it. All right, I see. And Mom just looked at it and said, see, I told you.
Yeah. So it's obvious as I'm visiting your website, and it's obvious that this love of nature is found throughout your books, and you have a really neat way of developing characters. Is there a special kind of formula? Isn't quite the word I'm looking for, but how is it that you create the personalities of your characters that you feature in your books?
Okay, thank you for that question. A quick story that will maybe help answer that. I had the first book out, Ronnie book, and then I told my fiance who was with me, we were in the Keys, and I said, I need to write. Because the more I write, the more I realize the words just come. They just do. And so we were at this remote, one of the Keys, they're small islands, and she goes, what are you going to write about? And we turned around, and there was a tidal pool. Similar to what you'd see in Maine or over at Hampton Beach in New Hampshire, right? Looked at this old tidal pool, and it's probably 3 feet deep, like I described in the coral reef book that I have. Anyway, the little character's in there, and he's darting around this one fish, and he's hanging out with this other baby fish. So again, nature, I'm watching it, looking at it. And I explained to my fiance that in nature, these little fish will go to the mangrove forest to live, right? And from where we were standing, I could see the mangrove trees. I said, my next book is going to be about these little fish going to the mangrove trees and how they grow and do their juvenile growing and development there. again, though, because I'm an avid diver and snorkeler firsthand, like I picked sergeant majors for a couple of my books because they're very playful fish. When you scuba dive with them, they dart around, they swim up to you, they act like they want you to chase them. So I'm like, by nature, this is a playful little fish. So I'm like, all right, well, that's that guy. And then the yellowtail snapper, I just thought, well, he's got to have a sidekick. Maybe she's a little less rambunctious than he is. And again, with the key deer, it was watching key deer, hanging out with them, not obviously harassing them, but just observing them. And so yeah, it's from observation.
Yeah, yeah. And do you like to write stories that feature that kind of yin and yang, the different personalities that kind of complement each other?
Yes, sir. I think the cumulative sum is more than each one. That they just play well off each other.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I kind of like how the hawksbill turtle in one of my books, I just kind of came up with, all right, kind of a benevolent creature that's going to be with these two youngsters and help them out a little bit. And even the mangrove forest that I write about, the tree, one of the trees is talking to the fish, and same thing. Like, how do you play up these people? Want a positive spin to it, a good feel. I don't write preachy children's books. I mean, my books are all about the environment and protecting it. They are not, however, preachy. Mm-hmm. Other than saying, hey, it's important to protect the environment. I don't think you need to beat people over the head like that. I want to have fun characters with a good story. In the case of Kiki and Slugger's Magic Spring Adventure, that was pretty much me just making up the magic spring, obviously. Because that's the main thing about how the animals that go to it, that's how they drink the water, and it has magical powers. That's how they can communicate with one another. And kind of, not that I went and physically saw Magic Spring, but I was in the area where I know the deer like to hang out, and there's a spring back there tucked into the woods. And I'm watching the birds, I'm watching the thing, I hear the dog in the distance, I'm like, well, maybe that spring's, it's got some special powers to it. I just kind of went from there. But yes, to your question, I'm sorry, a little wordy there, but yeah, I like to make a cast of characters that play well with each other.
Yeah, yeah. As you were talking, and going back to when you were talking about observing the little fish in that tidal pool, I'm thinking, what a neat activity a family can do. Just kind of go out, go in nature, and then in addition to, just observing, what are we seeing and what do you think? Maybe asking the kids to, kind of flex their imagination muscles and think, what do you think that fish is thinking about? What do you, talk about that fish? And if that fish were to hang out with you, what kind of personality would that fish maybe have?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That's very similar to what I was thinking. Because when I was showing her and explaining how the fish do their thing, and there's the mangroves over there. I mean, we were there like 3 hours watching the tidal pool. And granted, that's the Florida Keys, but people could do the same thing at Hampton Beach in New Hampshire, up in Maine or wherever, or on the shores of Lake Erie, or out in the woods in Vermont, looking at tadpoles and frogs in a pond or whatever. It's all observe what's around you and kind of make it playful.
Yeah. Hey, you could sit on the banks of Lake Champlain and imagine what Champ the monster, the lake monster thing is.
Yeah. I went diving with my Navy buddy there in Lake Champlain on a couple of wrecks, and we were hoping to see Champ. We didn't see him.
You didn't see him.
But, that would be an interesting storyline, though. We saw some bass and things like that. Maybe that's a good story. Champ, we found Champ scuba diving on a wreck.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a lot of fun. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What other kind of projects are you other than this maybe project about scuba diving and finding Champ? What other kind of projects are you working on?
Well, actually, it's interesting you asked that. Thank you. I'm working on a novel. It's an adult novel. It's an adventure mystery type thing. I'm about 4,000 words into it, so I'm well into it. A different, of course, genre, but I think it's got solid bones. I need to flesh out some of the characters some more. But I also have several other children's books that I'm thinking about. I've actually got one drafted up. I've typed kind of a storyline would be a better way to put it. So that's out there. For me, it's not hard to get motivation for this, especially with the children's books, because it's kind of like just be observant of what's around you. Mm-hmm. I just flew back. We were talking earlier. I just flew back from New England myself. It was quite cold, but my friend's house has a nice trout stream near it. It's a guy who used to do a lot of trout fishing as a younger person. I couldn't help but sit there, and my friends were actually asking me. They're like, "What are you thinking?" I'm looking at the stream. I said, "Well, I'm thinking there's some cold fish out there." Maybe they're doing calisthenics under the waterfall. I don't know, but it looks pretty cool to me. And I literally could have, without a lot of effort, well, it's a lot of effort, but at least gotten a storyline down.
Right, right. Yes, I can attest those New England ponds are very cold, even in the spring and early summer.
Yes, sir. I've 4th of July, Hampton Beach. I can tell you, right? Most people are you're doing a wind sprint into the water and even faster coming out, right? Down here, you can swim around a little bit. Kind of up there, if you don't have a wetsuit on, it's a problem.
Yeah. Hey, I'm curious. You told me that this kind of second career or this chapter in your life was kind of started by sitting down and answering those questions from your daughter when she was 4 years old. What does she think about your career as a writer now? Does she know that she inspired this? And if she did, what does she think about it?
Well, she likes it a lot, and I dedicated the first book to her that I wrote, and her brother. So no, she's a fan of it, and I plan to let her know a little later. I heard from some of the folks at Ford Publicity about. I guess I got an honorable mention for a Dragonfly Award just yesterday, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, I'm going to share that with her.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, we should probably tell people where they can go to find out more about Kiki and Slugger's Magic Spring Adventure and the other great books that have come from your imagination.
Well, thank you. I have a website, robertandrewprovan.com, and if you go there, there's all kinds of links. I write a monthly blog. Some of that's about travel that I've done and observations and some photographs we have there. This year I've been lucky enough to dive out from Kauai, Hawaii to the Dry Tortugas, which is about 70 miles south of Key West. So anyway, there's blogs there, but yes, at robertandrewprovan.com, you can find links to our books, and they're also available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Wonderful.
And Books A Million, actually, as well.
Excellent. Well, we want to encourage everybody to check out Kiki and Slugger's Magic Spring Adventure, a great book that you can read with your kids, and hopefully a great book that will inspire you to go out and spend some time in nature with your kids. And our guest today has been the author, Robert Provan. Robert, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. We are so grateful that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. We'd love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on Twitter. If you are on LinkedIn, please connect with Jed Doherty. We also have a Reading With Your Kids page on LinkedIn. We would love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Authors, click on the Authors Click Here button to find out how you can be a guest here on the show and find out how we can help you celebrate your book with the world. And also, parents, please be sure to visit readingwithyourkids.com to download our free online magazine. Hey, we want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our amazing guest. I also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Chris Doherty, Ann O'Leary, Soji Franklin. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.
What?